In Cairo, Egypt, over the span of 3 days in April 1904, Aleister Crowley sat down for 1 hour each of those days and wrote what was to become the central sacred text of Thelema, and one of the most well-known and important books of magic. Dictated to Crowley by the entity Aiwass, it is said that the text would usher in a new stage in the spiritual evolution of humankind, which was to be known as the Aeon of Horus. Crowley's path leading to the writing of the Book of the Law began on March 16, 1904. While Crowley was performing a ritual in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid of Giza, his wife, Rose Kelly, began, out of the blue, muttering the words, "They're waiting for you." Crowley had no idea what she meant by this until a couple of days later, during an invocation, Rose mentioned that it was Horus who was waiting for him. Now, it was said that Rose didn't have much interest in magic, so these seeming to be mystical revelations made Crowley go, Still a bit skeptical, though, he decided he would test his lovely bride. So he took Rose to the museum in Cairo, where he asked her to locate an image of Horus. Passing a number of other representations of Horus, she eventually stopped before an image of him on a stele numbered 666, that which would be known to the Thelemites as the Stele of Revealing. But Rose would claim that the message didn't actually come from Horus himself, but instead from his courier, if you will, an entity called Aiwass. And for 3 days, beginning on April 8th, Crowley was to enter the temple and write down what he heard between noon and 1 p.m. So, in the honeymoon apartment in a fashionable European quarter of Cairo, Crowley sat at his desk. And from the furthest corner of the room came the voice of Aiwass. Crowley insisted that the experience was exactly like someone was speaking to him, and that the voice had a deep timbre, musical and expressive, its tones solemn, voluptuous, tender, fierce, devoid of native or foreign accent. He also stated that Aiwass's general appearance was of a body composed of fine matter, which had a gauze-like transparency. Tall, dark man in his 30s, well-knit, active, and strong, with the face of a savage king and eyes veiled, lest the gaze should destroy what they saw. After all was said and done, Crowley made a few copies of the manuscript for evaluation by close friends, eventually getting it published in 1909. Now, what's the Book of the Law all about? To begin with, the well-known verse, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law," which forms the core of Crowley's practice, is found in this book. The book is the go-to source material for Crowley's students and occultists in general. It's a rather short book and is often found published in a pamphlet form, where Christians have the Bible and Jews have the Torah. The Thelemites have the Book of the Law. Now, the book has 3 chapters, 1 chapter for each member of a trinity of ruling deities. First is Nuet, whose message is of freedom, love, and mystical bliss. Second is Hadit, the winged solar globe, symbol of divine authority. And third in this trinity is the child produced by the union of Nuet and Hadit, the Lord of the new Aeon. Throughout the book, 2 other mystic figures stand out, the Great Beast and the Scarlet Woman, who appears to be representations of Crowley and Rose themselves. The style and phrasing in the book is often ambiguous, with an odd, otherworldly prose poetic style which many find illuminating. And because of its ambiguity, various interpretations of the book's meanings are possible. Crowley himself, depending on his mood, gave different interpretations of verses, often being at odds with what appears to be the surface meaning. Now, the question is often asked, did the book's contents really come from some supernatural entity, or was it from Crowley's subconscious? Crowley did admit to the possibility of Aiwass being identified with his own subconscious, although he thought it was unlikely. But Israel Regardie, Crowley's former secretary, claimed the master Therion never objected to the idea that Aiwass was a part of his unconscious mind, claiming that it can safely be said that current psychological theory would agree that any one person is possessed of all sorts of knowledge and power of which he is totally unconscious. Both Freudian and Jungian theory are on the side of such an assumption. Regardie also argued that Rose's ability to answer Crowley's questions about Horus, that wasn't as remarkable as Crowley insisted, because he often used her as a sounding board for many of his own ideas. Thus, she may have had a greater knowledge of magic than Crowley claimed. It's also been stated that the style of writing is too similar to Crowley's other poetic works to be the product of something supernatural. Now, besides an otherworldly entity or regurgitated from Crowley's personal unconscious, could there be a third choice for the source of the book? Could Aiwass have been an avatar of an archetype of the collective unconscious? Who knows? I know it's a confusing read, yet intriguing, and it should be read by all occultists. So what do you think? What's the source of the Book of the Law? Leave your comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.